With every new Super Mario game, Nintendo creates all kinds of new enemies to fit with the worlds and levels they created for that specific title. And at some point they also made an enemy named after and inspired by bullies, being an absolute nightmare in some levels they're seen in. So today we will look at these strange metallic beings to find out how they evolved in terms of use, design, gameplay and story. What a classic line, isn't it? Someone in the comments actually called those 4 words the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and I thought that was absolutely hilarious, so I wanted to share it with you all. Now, let's get into the video. Now, those odd creatures were first seen in 1996 in a game that revolutionized the industry in a lot of ways. Super Mario 64. A 3D Mario game which was really different from anything Nintendo had done so far, and so this new enemy was born. These bullies resemble a black sphere with green feet, angry eyes, and 2 bright yellow bull horns, which inspired their name as well. Now, in this game, they usually reside on platforms, sometimes even in groups which you have to deal with. Now, these freaks attack by charging themselves into their enemies in order to push them over ledges, knocking them into lava or bottomless pits. And the only way for Mario to beat a bully is to beat them at their own game by pushing them into the lava. After being melted, a coin will be tossed up to the platform that the creature was pushed off from. Now, they are supposedly minions of the colossal big bully, who you get to fight after taking out some smaller ones. Sadly enough though, this so-called leader doesn't have any special abilities itself, making him the same as the rest, but just a bit bigger. However, the weird thing is that these minions also appear in Bowser in the Fire Sea, the second Bowser boss level. So could it be that they do follow the big bully, but he in turn is a minion of Bowser? It would make sense. Now in the game they have quite an interesting role that only really works in Lethal Lava Land, above a gap, and maybe somewhere high up. Because the annoying thing of taking them on is the fact that you can fall off. Every time it happens in Lethal Lava Land, Mario runs around like a maniac, making it even harder to push the bullies off yourself. It kinda reminds me of tug-of-war. Battling these living bowling balls for the platform you're on. It's an effect they've tried to create before with the older koopaling fights, where you have to get them off a platform as well, by jumping on their head at the right time. But now it's all in 3D, making the whole conflict a lot more interesting because you can tackle them from any angle now. So it's basically an improved version of the exact same concept, now being used in a 3D world, which is already a plus for this mechanic. But this isn't all. Oh no. There's also another version of them seen in this game. It's seen in the world Snowman's Land, the 10th course of the game, which is snow-themed, just like Cool Mountain. Here a similar enemy known as a chill bully appears. It has a blue round body, a singular gold horn, and green shoes, similar to a big bully. You take them on in a mission called Chill with the Bully, and here you basically do the same thing as in Lethal Lava Land, but with one small twist. The platform you're fighting on is completely made of ice, and as we all know, this can only mean one thing in a Mario game. The ground is slippery, making it harder to tackle this huge bully, which could make this quite a tough ordeal. It's kind of sad though that the freezing cold body of the chill bully doesn't affect Mario at all. It would have been cool if he would be able to slow you down or something, but in the end they did nothing with it. However, while these types worked well in this game, they weren't seen in any other 3D games after, like Super Mario Sunshine and Galaxy. We would only see them return much later. But before they would come back on the HD console, they would first reappear in a remake of Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo DS. In this game, bullies appear with the same role and behavior as before, but we do see some new types of them. Well, actually, not a new variation, but a boss version of the Chill Bully, which is also seen in this game. His name is Chief Chili, and before the events of Super Mario 64 DS, he locked up Wario and was told by Bowser to guard the key to Wario's door. He's found at the end of the stage Chief Chili Challenge, which only Luigi can access using a power flower in the room with a large mirror. Once you enter his arena, he states that he locked Wario up because he was rude and mocking his mustache, which sounds like a thing our garlic-loving friend would do. Now during the fight he acts the same as Big Bully, but just looks a bit different and can only be attacked by punching or kicking him off the stage. Every time time you do so, he makes the stage smaller and then hops to the middle of it, and if you stand there, you will take damage. On the third attempt of pushing Chief Chili off the ledge, he manages to stay on the ledge while off balance, only needing the final blow. Now overall this fight isn't terrible, however there are a number of things I would have loved to see which didn't even end up on the cutting room floor. For example, why didn't they give this boss any cool abilities that could create some interesting scenarios? In the end, we don't see that at all. It's just a normal bully, but is able to survive more falls and makes the platform smaller in time. That's it. Which he did to make it easier for both you and him to push the other off the platform, which could add tension, but doesn't really in the end. Something they could have done with him, for example, is adding an ice breath ability that would temporarily stun you. If you get caught by this, he can easily push you off, but it shouldn't damage the player because that would be a bit overkill. Especially when the platform is so small, making one push more than enough, and it also makes dodging the ice breath harder. This would have worked really well and could also add that challenge the fight lacks to an extent. But of course this never happened and it just became a tougher Big Bully clone. So really this Super Mario 64 remake didn't really improve these classic enemies from the first ever 3D game, which is a waste of potential I would say. However, like I mentioned before, things would slow down from this point onward because tons of other games didn't even feature them at all. But some did think about including them because there are unused models for bullies in the files of Super Mario Galaxy. Similar to the normal Super Mario 64 and the DS version, their bodies are made of a flat texture showing a picture of a black sphere instead of a fully modeled sphere. There are two different versions, one with yellow and the other with red horns. I'm not sure what their plan was with these, but they never made it in. And we have no idea why, to be honest. But after a 9-year absence, bullies reappear in Super Mario 3D World, this time in full HD. However, their appearance has changed quite a lot. They are now made of blue shiny metal, their horns are golden and are bent forward with dark stripes at the base, and they appear larger than the previous versions. And they have rims above their feet and red eyes, no longer grunt, and make a metal sound when jumped on. Quite a big change in design, which you don't see that often with enemies, especially if they were introduced in a 3D game. However, when it comes to his strategy, he once again charges at you and can be knocked back by jumping on them, using projectiles like fireballs, or tapping them on the gamepad. So in general, their look is the thing that changed a lot, while their strategy is the same old, same old. So is that really it? Well, no, because there's also a new boss called Prince Bully. He's a boss that first appears in Super Mario 3D World as the enemy of multiple enemy battles. And he looks quite different compared to the others, more royal, which is very fitting, looking a bit like a fancy helmet resembling some other designs seen throughout history, but also a bit like a furnace. Just like all the others, he will attempt to ram into the player but won't damage you. A classic strategy we have seen time and time again. But is that all? In Super Mario 64 DS, the boss didn't do a whole lot in the fight, which was a real bummer. Well no, here things are different because this one will spew a fireball at you after you ram into him, and during the whole fight he will glare at you and watch your every move. So this fight is clearly quite different from the previous bosses. And in later fights, rather than just spitting one red fireball that will fly straight, he will spit out 3 blue fireballs that sort of home in, the amount of which will increase by 1 each time he is damaged. So he does have more interesting attacks this time around, and even becomes more challenging in time. Now in both encounters, you need to force him into a nearby clear pipe where he gets sucked in and spat out through another, rolled into a cylinder, at which point he must be pounced on, throwing him across the room. After 3 hits, he will explode into a circle of coins along with the green star he was guarding. Now as you can imagine, this fight is a leaps and bounds ahead of the bully boss fights we saw in Super Mario 64. He has multiple different attacks, an interesting look, increases in difficulty during the fight, and needs to be beaten in a unique way that's very different from the normal ones. In every way, this boss did better than the previous. So would Nintendo continue this trend? But before we get to that, be sure to check out the videos and playlists in the upper right corner, because there is more evolution of there, and also subscribe and click the bell button. It's really important. But let's get back to the video, because there's one recent event left that we need to cover, although it isn't that thrilling, sadly enough. Because the answer to that question is sadly enough no, and things were going to degrade from here. We did see them in a 2D game, but here they do the exact same thing, but just going from left to right or the other way around. This was in Super Mario Maker 2, where they are an exclusive enemy for the Super Mario 3D World style. This is cool, but presented nothing new. And sadly enough, marks the end of this video as well. While the bullies are really cool enemies, they are sadly enough not seen that much. Luckily, at least some modern games did some interesting things with them, and who knows what will happen next.